time now for your business update with Yuka Royer. Hi, Yuka.
Hi, Jeannie.
You're going to start in China. We're in a major policy shift. The country now says it will let married couples have a maximum of 3 children.
That's right. Well, as you just said, it does mark a major policy shift coming 5 years after the famous one-child policy was dropped. Now, married couples have been able since then to have up to 2 children, but that reform hasn't really worked in boosting China's population. One major obstacle for many married couples is the very high cost of raising children, especially in cities like Shanghai and Beijing, where rents and the cost of living have skyrocketed in recent years. People from the one-child generation who were born as one child in the family are also keen to give the best to their only child rather than reduce the quality of education for the sake of having more kids. And many women are now prioritizing their career over family planning and are also getting married later. Now, all this is having consequences. Earlier this month, China published its once-in-a-decade census, which showed that the country's population has grown to 1.4 billion, a 5.4% increase from 10 years ago. But that's the slowest pace in decades. The birth rate for 2020 was just 1.3, on par with aging societies like Italy and Japan.
And Chinese society, of course, is growing older and older as we speak.
That's true. Well, the percentage of people over 65 is now 13.5% compared with under 9% a decade ago. While the number of very young people, those under 17, has increased slightly, the working population continues to shrink. It fell to 63.3% last year from more than 70% a decade ago. Now, in 2019, a government-run think tank warned that the state pension fund would start to decline in 2027 and be empty by 2035. Beijing has been testing private pension funds and is planning to raise the minimum retirement age gradually over the next 5 years from the current 60.
Some good news now in regard to the pandemic, and it does seem like the global recovery is picking up pace.
Well, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has revised its forecast for this year upwards, but warned that too many headwinds persist, including the slow pace of vaccinations in poorer countries. Shelley Sitbon has this report.
The good news first. The OECD has revised the global growth forecast for this year upwards to 5.8%.
Things have gone better than we initially feared. Output losses have been lower and unemployment has not risen as much as we projected a year ago. Now, this is due to the unprecedented level of macroeconomic policy support some countries have deployed.
But growth is uneven. This graphic shows that while some countries like China, the US, and South Korea have already returned to pre-pandemic levels, others aren't expected to recover before several years. The slow pace of vaccination in developing countries is one key reason. The OECD says this makes everyone vulnerable since the economy is global, with trade and supplies arriving from all parts of the globe. The report also points to risks of inflation as the world phases out of the COVID crisis.
Par exemple, concrètement, je veux aller au restaurant. Si le restaurateur ne trouve pas de salariés, il va augmenter les prix des salaires et ça peut se répercuter sur votre addition.
The OECD report says it's confident those price hikes will only be temporary.
Now, working on a global vaccine distribution is one of the topics discussed at the OECD's virtual summit being held today and tomorrow. A leadership change will also take place. Matthias Cormann will take over as Secretary General from the current head, Angel Gurria.
Now, one of the countries hardest hit by the pandemic, of course, is India. Though infections do appear to have slowed, authorities are also ramping up production of vaccines for domestic use.
Well, the government says that some 120 million doses of COVID vaccines will be available for its population in June, a significant jump from May, when fewer than 80 million were available. The Serum Institute of India, meanwhile, will boost production of the AstraZeneca jabs to 90 million a month from the current 65 million. million, according to Reuters. India has administered about 212 million doses so far, but only 3% of its 1.35 billion people have been fully vaccinated.
Yuka, what's been happening on the markets today?
Well, European markets here trading lower this Monday, unable to keep up the momentum from last week. Paris' CAC 40 almost flat, as you can see there at midday, after France's economy minister Bruno Le Maire said that the country's deficit would stand at 9.4% of GDP this year. Markets in the UK are closed for the spring bank holiday.
Yuka, just to wrap up now, air travel is picking up rapidly in the United States as coronavirus restrictions are starting to ease. But unfortunately, reckless behavior from passengers has also come back as well.
Well, unfortunately, some US airlines are holding off on resuming in-flight sales of alcohol because of the problem. Now, American Airlines has decided to continue to suspend alcohol services until at least mid-September, when the federal face mask mandate on planes is set to expire. The company had been due to resume alcohol sales on Tuesday. The move followed Southwest, which also decided to postpone the resumption after one of its flight attendants lost 2 teeth after being assaulted by a passenger. The Federal Aviation Administration says that there have been about 2,500 reports of unruly behavior by passengers so far this year.
Incredible. All right, Yuka, thanks so much for that. Yuka Royo there with that look at your business update.